Hello everybody, this is Mark Hutten with myaspergerschild.com, and I received this question from a parent. She states, my son with high functioning autism still has trouble with transitions. Social stories don't seem to work that well for him. To get him to stop doing what he's doing to get ready for bed, as just one example, is like pulling teeth. Is there anything I can do to help him transition from one activity to the next? Well, there is, and we're going to look at a 7-step plan for giving your son plenty of warning and helping him make these transitions. So the first thing you're going to do is give him a 10-minute warning. You're going to tell your son you've got 10 more minutes. Now this is a little secret that you need to keep to yourself. Unless your son is watching the clock or is a stickler for accuracy in this area, you can give this warning well before you actually only do have 10 minutes. For example, maybe you really have 15 or 20 minutes, but you're going to tell your son that you only have 10. Let's assume that your son is ignoring you at this point. He may be thinking he has plenty of time yet. Okay? So, step 2 then would be to give him the 5-minute warning. About halfway into the 10-minute warning, say you've got 5 more minutes. And get at least an acknowledgement that your son has received the message at this point. As Asperger's children often do, let's assume that your son is still dilly-dallying around. In other words, he's taking his sweet time because he still thinks he has plenty of time. Step 3, you're going to start giving warnings by the minute. Just as some snooze alarms get louder each time you hit the button, you're going to make your warnings more frequent at this point. For example, you want to give a 4-minute warning, 3-minute warning, 2-minute warning, and so on. And again, here is a little secret that you're going to keep to yourself. The countdown doesn't have to actually correspond to factual time. You can say, for example, that he only has 2 minutes left, but he may actually have 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes. In any event, let your son know that it's time to get organized for a change. The 4th step will be warnings by the second. At this point, your youngster should be at least reluctantly moving toward change. Count down in 10-second increments at this point. For example, you've got 50 seconds, 40 seconds, 30 seconds, and so on. Step number 5, you're going to give an extra 10 count. If your son is still goofing off, tell him he has a count of 10 to get with it. Then count up from 1 to 10 and move on. The 6th thing to keep in mind is this technique should work for those children with Asperger's and high-functioning autism who have difficulty with motor planning and change. However, you will want to calibrate the amount of time used to your son's needs. The countdown that I just described is merely an example and one that can be tailored according to the situation and your son's temperament. And the 7th thing to keep in mind is you may want to use a stopwatch or a timer because they can sometimes also be an effective countdown method. When choosing a timer, you may want to get one that will be the most appropriate for your son and make sure that it's something that he will easily understand. While a digital timer may be an appropriate choice for older children, this may not be well suited for younger ones. For the younger kids who still don't understand the concept of time, the hourglass timer usually works best. Not only because it's more interesting, but also because it's easier to understand. Since younger kids may not know how long 3 minutes is, the hourglass timer gives them a visual of exactly how long 3 minutes is. Now, before using this timer, let your son know what the timer is for. Let him know that the timer keeps track of when he needs to switch activities. For example, you could say, when the timer goes off, it's time for you to stop playing your video game and get ready for bed. Also, when using the timer, it's important that you provide warning signals. For example, ringing of a soft bell, gently snapping your fingers when the time is almost over. In this way, your son will be ready when the time runs out and will not feel surprised or rushed. The important thing is to be consistent and to always use the same warning signals. In this way, it'll become part of the routine. So, in summary, you're going to issue a 10-minute warning, a 5-minute warning, then warnings by the minute, then warnings by the second, and then you're going to give an extra 10 count at the very end. When the time is completely run out, you're going to give him a 10 count and say you have to be transitioned to the new activity by the time I get done counting to 10. If your Asperger's child just flat out refuses to make the transition from the current activity to the next one, or worse yet, he throws a temper tantrum, help him understand that resistance and throwing a tantrum will not help him get what he wants. For example, let's say he's watching television, then you come along and want him to get ready for dinner. Your first request for this transition is met with stiff confrontation. For example, maybe he yells or throws the remote. You can then say, if your problem is that you want to watch TV, then yelling and throwing the remote is not solving that problem. It's just prolonging the problem. If you want to solve that problem, then come and eat a few bites, then you watch TV some more. There's your 7-step plan. I hope it works for you. Thank you. Stay in touch. This is Mark Hutten with myaspergerschild.com.